Hey everyone, Sean here, and today I wanted to sit down and talk about Sonic Frontiers in the quick draw style, which basically is a rapid fire style review, which is kind of appropriate for our Hedgehog hero, but also Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are coming out pretty soon, so I want to be able to make time for it. Now, Sonic Frontiers is the latest entry for the Blue Blur in Sega's flagship franchise, Sonic the Hedgehog. At least back in the day anyway. I've always loved Sonic for his speed and attitude as a kid born in the 90s, though I was introduced to him in the early 2000s thanks to a close friend of mine from the days of middle school. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube was my first own copy for the Sonic games. Ever since then, not only I've been playing Sonic, I loved drawing him. Let's not forget Sonic has had many other media outlets including cartoons and even an anime series, Sonic X, which honestly influenced my art further. Sonic though has gone through an identity crisis of sorts ever since his transition into 3D after his prime 2D days. Funny enough, those Sonic games were what stuck with me most. Sonic and Friends went through a major makeover not once but twice, not only with their voices but also along with that, the writing, becoming much more kiddie-ish and over the top with the many jokes per minute dialogue which started in Sonic Colors. Thankfully, Colors was a diamond in the rough along with Generations. Sonic got by just enough to continue as a video game franchise, though often overshadowed by other Sega franchises such as Yakuza and even Persona over the recent years. Here then comes Sonic Frontiers, the first Sonic game to finally dive into the open world wagon. Sonic fans and myself have been waiting for 5 years after Sonic Forces. After playing the game for about 24 hours, including the enemy fights, side quests, exploration, and S-ranking some levels, I can definitely say that I enjoyed my time with the game as a Sonic fan. The potential is definitely laid out, but there are other things I do have to say. Let's just get the gameplay out of the way for this time. Yes, this is an open world game, though to me it's not the largest of open worlds, though still vast enough for Sonic to run around. There are separate sections divided as different islands, 4 to be exact. They all essentially felt like one large level with obstacles that you've seen from previous Sonic games slapped all over the island on top of some new obstacles. Each of them you can freely run around and explore many points that help contribute to your progress in the game, whether for the story or leveling up Sonic. This includes solving simplistic puzzles to get items. There are puzzles that you can only do them at night, and there's no way to cycle to night easily, not even a rest feature of sorts. That itself was rather annoying. Like many open world games, you'll find points that help clear up the fog, revealing more of the map as you go, which does add that satisfaction/addiction like you would in open world games. Let me say though that the third island was by far the worst one of the bunch because of how annoying it was trying to cross to the smaller islands. Its gameplay loop does start to become apparent after beating the first island boss. You talk to your friends, collect emeralds, fight the boss as Supersonic, and that repeats for each island pretty much. Despite that being so apparent, it didn't bother me that much as I was able to enjoy the game with what the world had to offer, enjoying the fact that I'm playing a Sonic game in an open world format. Granted, it's not exactly flourished with life, but it provides with enough ground with the obstacles and all that for enough fun to be had, willingly overlooking the fact that the world is kind of empty feeling, but I guess it does make sense with the story tied to that. Running around as Sonic is pretty fun here. Let's not forget the cyberspace levels. This is where you'll get the traditional high-speed platforming that you expect from Sonic games. While they are widely short for the most part, within that time, I had a lot of fun and felt my love for these Sonic games coming back. Evidently, once I got used to the controls during the earlier level of things. Now, the difficulty is sort of all over the place. If you want to go S-rank some stuff, stage 1-2 is some of the most difficult ones out there. Otherwise, most of the other ones are pretty easy to S-rank.
Oh, I did it! Oh my god! Yes! I did it!
Other gameplay related mentions is that you can actually skip a lot of time via fishing, hosted by the beloved Big the Cat. At some point you'll accumulate many coins that allow you to fish after finding the terminal, of course. A lot of that does come from the random event feature within the game, which I believe happens at nighttime, where not only a bunch of enemies pop up, but a bunch of these pickups do appear, and I guess the more you pick these up, the more of that slot machine does continue, and there are a lot of times where you can get a lot of items, including the fishing coins. That's where I got a lot of those purple coins. Once you catch enough fish and other crazy findings, you can just buy the items you need to progress through the game. Kinda nutty if you think about that. It's not Sonic who holds the key, it's actually Big. The combat side of the gameplay was pretty fun as well. It was just weird to get used to the fact that Sonic was throwing out projectiles with his hands via attack that you can get later on. You are provided with a simple skill tree to gain some fun attacks and abilities. I like the side looping ability where you can freely form a circle around stuff to create bursts of wind that can be used for exploration or combat purposes. You can approach enemies with a number of styles, whether it's more of a melee focused style or a projectile route to shoot them to death. Sonic here utilizes a parry mechanic. However, it is not a conventional one, as you can just hold it until the enemy hits you, making things insanely easier. I overcomplicated it by trying to tap it during my first boss fight.
Oh, you hold it? You're kidding. Oh my god,
I kind of wish for it to be a tap mechanic and refine the parry mechanic in the future for it to be more fun and satisfying while adding that risk. Regarding to the skill tree, I just wish there was a little more to it. I especially wish for a AoE attack of sorts when attacking multiple enemies, which you do encounter quite a bit. There were frustrating times where you want to homing attack enemy A but instead hit enemy B who has spikes out, and you wind up getting punished for it, losing rings while at that. Yes, you can use the lock-on feature, but there are just a lot of times, especially for a game like Sonic, you kind of just forget about that, and in the heat of the moment you just keep going with the attacks. Finding enemies was pretty fun, as there was a decent variety, especially with the mini bosses who can come with unique mechanics and gimmicks, though I found fighting the squid pretty annoying along with the caterpillar. Now when it came to the big bosses, satisfaction was definitely provided here, especially during the Giganto and Wyvern fights. Each boss fight has some really cool set pieces, or at least attempted to, within the limitations of its game engine. It was fun to experience either way, but I will say that the final boss was massively disappointing to fight against. Those who play will definitely know why. If you want to get the most out of your final boss fight, turn on hard difficulty right before you enter that last temple. For me, it was just disappointing that the epic conclusive fight for Sonic Frontiers mounts to a minigame of sorts. That's it. It seemed like it was firing on all cylinders, and that's how you want to go out? That is indeed wildly disappointing. If you do play on normal difficulty like myself, you actually skip on the minigame, it goes straight into the final QTEs, and even get all the cutscenes still, despite being called the true ending. Now with all that said, the combat overall I'd say was pretty dang fun, but not without its jankiness. Now, not only the gameplay side of things went through a number of changes, but with the overall tone. The dialogue with Sonic and his friends is night and day in comparison to the past games ever since Sonic was first voiced by Roger Craig Smith.
Seems an evil man, and you might know him, who they call Baldy Nosehair.
Baldy Nosehair? That's the best thing I've heard all day. I gotta remember that one.
Whatever assaulted the island sure packed a punch. That was on par with Dark Gaia easy.
I feel like we need to find the emeralds pronto.
Agreed. We'll rendezvous later.
They stopped making many jokes per minute and started to take the situation more seriously, feeling a lot more mature in that sense. With that, the voice acting was a lot more tolerable this time around, and I was able to enjoy the story a lot more. Perhaps in some moments the voice acting sounded a little too conservative, especially with Amy.
Sonic, are you alright?
Me? You're the one who's only half here.
I feel fine. But that energy that was holding me prisoner went into you.
Okay, maybe the
with weird zappy stuff before. Besides, I feel like it gave me some kind of
some of the delivery is a little off.
Well, in that case, we need to get moving. If I was trapped, I'm sure Tails was too.
Good call. I'll scout around and find you later. Deal?
Deal. Be careful.
Careful? Where's the fun in that?
Sonic here sounded noticeably deeper. To me, Sonic now sounds more like Mirage from Apex Legends. Yes, by the way, it is the same voice actor.
Yeah, I'm ready for this. I'm so ready for this. I am extremely ready for this. We ready?
Careful? Where's the fun in that?
I must say, Knuckles is back being that cool badass again, instead of that airheaded gym rat that we've seen in several games, especially in Sonic Boom. This was very much evident during the prologue animation that we saw on YouTube. This appears to be the work of Ian Flynn, the chief writer of the Sonic comics. I really do hope they maintain the changes and perhaps improve upon it. By the way, this time around, I actually played the entirety of the game in English. I really was curious as to what was going on with the English voice acting for Frontiers after noticing the changes in tone from even the initial trailers, and I was pleased with it this time around. Perhaps I'll check out the YouTube videos in Japanese in another time. While I mentioned writing not too long ago, let's talk about the story and such without spoiling things too much. It's pretty basic to follow for the most part. I just wish they explained more about the backstory of Sage, the new character. Maybe you can find out more in Eggman's voice logs, but I wish there was something to see rather than letting the audio tapes taking care of that. In this story, I felt that she was a pretty decent character to say the least. You can start to feel her realization for Sonic's reasoning and logic despite the outcome looking rather grim. It's all about saving Sonic's friends and looking out for each other while fighting some evil cyber creatures. Again, all while tackling pretty mature themes, especially from someone like Tails, complemented by the conservative voice acting. I also wish for more backstory on certain elements such as the cyberspace itself, and of course, the main antagonist. You can already guess that it's not really Dr. Eggman this time around. It's worth mentioning that they do talk about other characters by name from other games, which is a nice bit of fan service for me. They even threw in a name from the comics, which is pretty cool actually. Again, the story was enjoyable with its relative simplicity despite having those rough edges. Speaking of rough edges, there are other complaints about the game. As a Sonic game, it does have that jank players have seen throughout the years. Physics can just freak out at times, the camera being wonky, although you can alleviate some of that if you fiddle around with the settings, but good luck navigating through those settings because I personally found the menu to be awful because of its clunkiness. You have to wait for a second or two to then confirm your settings and other such nuances with the menu. That bit of timing makes all the difference. You can't just navigate through the menu with a stick or D-pad traditionally. You have to confirm all the tabs, then I guess proceed. It just felt bad to use it almost every time, especially during those times where, replay the level over and over again as I try to S-rank things. Luckily, despite the jankiness, I didn't find any harsh bugs on my end, but I have seen someone get stuck between a rock and a hard place, quite literally. Another detriment worth mentioning is that the pop-in is very annoying at times for a game like this, where you need the game itself to keep up with Sonic. This becomes more and more apparent after the first island, and it can get really bad at times, especially if you want to land on a rail where you just can't see it before it's too late. Luckily, this does of course only happen in the open world. Now allow me to end this bit on this note, no pun intended, because the music in this game, absolute banger. It was even a lot of fun during the boss fights with the metalcore, new metal, and just metal in general. It goes hard. It really goes well with the moments you see with the boss fights. Cheesy for sure, While I like cheese in my video games, the rest of the game, like the cyberspace stuff, the overworld, and all the other stuff was accompanied by such awesome music. It definitely is up there amongst the best Sonic soundtracks and even game soundtracks in general within these recent times. It's such robbery that it did not get nominated at the Game Awards for its soundtrack at least. Either way, Tomoya Ohtani nailed it out of the park. In fact, I think several parks with this soundtrack. Absolute inferno of an OST. Okay, all in all, to kind of sum it up, I enjoyed my 24 hours with Sonic Frontiers. I enjoyed this new format for Sonic, and I really hope that they can improve upon it in a sequel. Now, with how the story concluded, it is sequel baiting, so there is that potential for a Sonic Frontiers 2 to happen. I think what they have here is a similar case with Pokemon Legends. Great concepts and foundations were to be had, but the execution is crying for big rooms for improvement. Although it still came out better than I expected, I still had plenty of fun and laughs. I warmly welcome this open world format for Sonic. So with that, I'm going to give this game a solid 7 out of 10. With that recommendation for all Sonic fans, this is worth a shot, I think. And I believe the devs definitely deserve all the praise and attention it has garnered thus far. I really do hope Sega gives this another chance to further grow for the better. Is this a beginning sign of a comeback for our Blue Hedgehog? I think so. Perhaps they can get some help from a certain studio that specializes in action games, say Platinum Games? Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you found this video entertaining. If you did, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. And perhaps consider joining the membership. If you have played Sonic Frontiers, what are your opinions for the game? Leave those comments in the comment section below. Alright, thanks everyone. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Sean out.